Welcome to the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. We've been chatting for about 15 minutes already. I thought, look, we put on the record button, should we? But we've got a very special guest, and I'm very interested in this podcast for selfish reasons, because we've got Mick. You guys would have known him as It's Turf and Surf, right?
Yeah, correct.
Because I keep saying surf and turf, but
No.
that's the meal. Look, there's two things here which are fascinating about you. One is you've managed to grow your Instagram to 100,000+ people mowing a lawn.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an achievement. But the second thing, which is the selfish reason why I'm getting you on here, is we can't say the business name, but you are the national sales manager for a big Australia-wide business managing 3,000+ employees.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a lawn lover who knows how to run business. And I think that's something that's really missing, because in our industry, we were just talking about it before, it's so hard to grow. It's so hard to run teams that are unsupervised. It's so hard to get great talent. And that is so common and relatable to the retail scene. The type of people who end up in gardening, although different interests and different personalities, it's the same type of wage structure. It's the same type of problems that you get in the retail scene as we get in the gardening scene. So I think you've got a lot of insight that a lot of business owners can learn from. And it's fascinating that it's like you're a lawn guy, you love your business, you love your numbers, you love your Instagram, you love managing. It's like, but you're not a turf professional or anything like that. No. I was like, no, we're getting him on because I want to have this conversation. And I'm glad you came in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pumped to be here.
Yeah. How's the studio? Do you like it?
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, don't tell everybody what it looks like outside.
No, I won't.
No, we're talking about if you guys haven't worked it out, I actually just had Andrew in earlier today, so it's still all a mess because I haven't had to clean it up. But
it's perfect.
So you're from Gold Coast, right?
Gold Coast, yep.
And what part of Gold Coast?
Mermaid Waters.
Don't know.
Right in the heart.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yep.
So, you've always lived there?
No. Originally from Brisbane. I grew up in Brisbane, and wife and I moved to the coast about 6 years ago.
Right. Yeah. And just easier with business, or just better?
No, just lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just wanted to get down to the beach, and always loved the beach, and went there most weekends, and I was sick of driving. So
yeah.
it was the best decision we ever made. You know, she was on the north side of Brisbane, and so it was a big move, but yeah, we'll never go back.
So the first thing I got to ask you, right? The two parts of this podcast. First, we'll talk about the Instagram, and then we'll get into managing people, right? So if you guys are interested in how to manage small teams, hold on. If you're into Instagram, this is it. If you don't like either of those, get off, all right? No, that's all right. So I've got 2 Instagram pages, combined total. I don't want to brag, but about 1,000 people.
Yeah, that's solid. It's solid.
Don't get too impressed, okay?
I think I got that the other day in one day.
How the heck do you get to 1,000? So how do you get 100,000 with? Because the thing about what you're doing, which surprises me, is a lot of your content is not what I would consider to be complicated. It's not like like you'll put a video up of you mowing your lawn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I watch it, right?
And
then I'm like, I didn't think I'd watch that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's too simple, but it works. And I sit here going, I've got to make these complicated reels on how to do this and how to do that, whatever, and spend an hour and a half creating something that's 45 seconds long. And you're probably putting your camera out there making something work. Do you have a knack for that? Because I don't think I could do that. Yeah, I don't think I could just point the camera and get, follow. Like people wouldn't be engaged. Is there a skill to that?
No, I think this is more challenging. I've never actually spoke on a reel or an Instagram, so this is probably the first time a lot of people are hearing
your voice.
So, because to be honest, I don't have the confidence to put my face on a camera. Like I'd prefer to just do it in a hyperlapse, or a sped up. And no, I literally just make it so simple. I very rarely put any editing into it. I cut and cut it very quickly. I use a measuring tape on top of the shed as my tripod, or on top of the bin with a
So you're just leaning your phone up against.
yeah. And
you don't even have one of these.
No, I haven't bought one yet.
They're like $10, man. Like, have you heard of Amazon?
Yeah, just
eBay.
trying to keep the lights on at home. But
the kids are eating you out of
yeah. Nah, so I occasionally get some interesting looks, and I got the wheelie bin out the front, and I'll use like a bottle or something as to hold the phone.
Because that's what I used to do. I used to do that when, like 5-6 years ago, time lapsing some of my jobs. Like if I had a quiet day or something like that. And I remember like the wind would move the camera.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, well, just not my friend, but all of a sudden it's like, you got the whole view and bam, there's a paving.
Yeah, because I literally mow once a week, and I'll have like, I'll put ideas into what I'm going to do, and then I'll set it up, and I'll think it's, go bang, and then I'll look around and the phone's on the ground and I've just missed everything. So it's like, another week of nothing.
But I reckon, you're probably going to save yourself more than $10 just by buying yourself I've got a spare tripod in the corner. All right.
But yeah, sometimes people look at it and go, "Oh, is that your wheelie bin in the thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's actually the tripod." But anyway,
my tripod looks like a wheelie bin.
Yeah,
but my wheelie bin identifies as a tripod. That's what you should put as your. That's what you should put as your hashtag next time.
Yeah, well, I used a trending sound not so long ago because we'll get into it, but I went down that one. But a trending sound that was really
I'm still listening. I left my phone. I didn't put my phone on silent.
Rookie. And that was very controversial throughout the world at that particular time.
Which trending sound was it?
The Bud Light one.
Oh yeah.
And I just put it to a thing, and it cracked off, and the comment section just was nuts. It was, but that's kind of where it all starts with me. Like I started the page in 2019. I was telling you, I started it purely because the COO of the company I worked for, we had to have an Instagram page, and prior to that, I had no social media whatsoever.
This is what fascinates me, right? You didn't even want Instagram.
Nah,
you didn't want Instagram. You don't consider yourself a lawn expert. When I asked you on, you were like, "Oh man, I don't know what we would talk about," But what I love about this is it demystifies like you've got to be someone who's super knowledgeable. You've got to have the most amazing camera setup. You've got to have, we're going to get into how you got there, but it's so funny that like, if you had the success, no one's got any other excuse. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I'm trying to get at. It's like, you don't even have a tripod, and you're putting probably way less effort into what I'm doing. And it's what, 4 years.
Yeah. 2019.
I've had Instagram for 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, not on the podcast, only 2 months or whatever. But like, man.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's just, it started off as, like I knew how my brain worked. So like, I knew it was probably something I'd go down a wormhole on. So, I didn't want to go down there, but, as I said, I required to do it for, internal processes to, celebrate success with staff and so forth like that. And, so we did that, and then, through a couple of, lawn pictures, because I always had a heap of lawn stuff on my phone from when, I'd send it to my brothers, and
because you've been like a lawn lover since you were a kid.
Yeah.
Like your dad, you're saying your dad before when we were on the phone, you're saying your dad had a cylinder mower, always cared for it. You had this like healthy competition with
brothers and stuff, and that sort of come through from my pop and then my dad as well, and then my older brothers did it as well. So it was always there, and we were always brought up to look after the lawn and make sure your property's always well maintained, and have pride in your home and so forth like that. So that was always there. And then when I I always had them on my phone. And as I said, I was always aware of social media lawn pages, and I said there was a guy in the office that had Facebook, and it was like lawn porn or something, and I'd always
Yeah,
creep
back in
out
the
on
day.
there when I was near his desk, and but then once I got it, I was like, oh, well, I'll follow some of the big dogs out there, that were on YouTube and so forth like that. Especially, I think it was the American guys mainly, and then there wasn't too many Aussie blokes at that stage. I think Lawn Tips had started at that stage, but
Yeah, well, he only started 2017.
yeah, he didn't follow me for ages. Yeah, I was pretty cut by that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can let him know too.
All right, I will.
Yeah.
Ben,
So,
what are you doing, mate?
yeah. So, no, but yeah, I started following them, and I threw a couple of things up, and started getting some feedback, and started asking for advice on certain things. And I was like, oh, this is not my wheelhouse. Like, I've always been I get not so much strict on that, but I've always researched and asked for advice from people of I guess they're professional in
Yeah.
that aspect, and it's not my place to give out advice.
I think that's what, and that's really important in the sense of social media, because like there is that fake it till you make it sort of thing where it's like, oh, we'll just pretend that we know what we're doing, and
yeah.
but then the real people out there can see,
Well, I just thought, especially for me, like I'll tell someone how I mow, but like for me, I'm not going to be giving advice on chemicals or or how to look after a certain turf that I have zero experience on.
Well, to put some context in, so we don't talk you down too much. If people go on your page, they can see your lawn is smoking. Right, it's struggling out a little bit. You got some disease or something. I mean, I got disease as well, so I'm not.
Yeah, no, I've tried to do rye the last 2 years, and that's what I mean. Like, I'll show my fails and everything, but I don't know why I can't grow a weed. Basically, like I don't know. I just can't. It's starting to really boom now, and especially over the years, I've worked with a couple of guys, just like Turf Care Australia, and
Yeah.
in the
You mean
later.
Emma?
No. Shane from Turf Care Australia.
Maybe I don't know this one. You can
Yeah.
tell me about him.
Oh, he's from Sydney. He's more I guess like professional grade, and then he went into the homeowner as well. But he's a wealth of knowledge, and I've been working with Vandalins as well.
Yep.
In the last sort of 2 years, and he's just a frother. So he's so eager to help, and he's really been helping me especially in the last couple of months. So he just jumps on the phone and helps you out. So it's really good.
Well, if you look at when your lawn's in spring, right, like it's right up there. Most people listening to this would aspire to have a lawn like that. So not to we don't want to be like, oh, here's an idiot who doesn't know anything. How did you get 100,000 followers then? No, like people are following you because they like the lawn, but you've got to. You're basically saying
I document every process that I do in my own.
That's funny.
like spreadsheets and stuff of what I've learned certain times that I've applied stuff, and if it didn't work and that. So I've got my own sort of, so to speak, journal, and I've followed guidance from those guys, and I've added to it. And but I've always said, like, I'm not one to hand out advice. Like, if I was skilled in this and had a qualification, by all means,
Yeah.
But it's just not my wheelhouse,
So how do we go from I don't even want Instagram to 4 years later? Like, so you obviously got the bug. What were the steps you took to actually start getting some traction? And then what were the biggest things that you did that got you followers?
Yeah, like at the start, it was I did the normal, like as I said, I just posted and waited, and got really impatient that no one gave any feedback on it, and then I went down some. I do a lot of travel for work, so in the first sort of 6 months, I just sort of did the normal follow for a follow, and looked up sort of things and went, oh, how does this thing work? And realized it was a beast, and so I set goals, like just how I operate, and I was like, oh, if I can get to 1,000 in so many months.
Yeah.
Win. I don't know what I won, but I got.
I understand that.
Yeah, I got 1,000. So and then
my life is meaning significance
yeah,
now. Why? I don't know. Don't ask questions.
No, and I think the more stick I got from mates around having a page with grass on it, the more I was like, oh, well, let's have it. Let's dance.
Right, you're like you needed to prove to them that
like
they were the idiots for not seeing.
Yeah.
There's
So
actually, this is how the internet works, right? There's weird niches in there.
yeah. So and then it went from there,
So like practically speaking, though, like was it? Because some people are like, oh, you got to post a reel every day, or some people are like, you got to do this, you got to do that. What was it that you started doing where you started seeing some traction there?
It was probably like 2 years ago, to be honest. Like it was when I really went down the wormhole and started looking at like.
So how many did you have 2 years ago? Like a couple of thousand or something?
No, I'd say probably like 6,000, 7,000, I'd say.
So enough of a base.
Yeah, it was. And again, like it goes up and goes down so much, but it was, it's probably 2 years ago. And I listened to Nick's, but I didn't get any notes or anything. I'm just going on vibe here. So I think it was probably 2 years ago. And I looked at sort of the trending sounds and then looked at, reels were introduced. And, I knew that they were, the Instagram was really pushing those from an algorithm point of view. And that's when I started going, okay, let's see how this system works. Yep. And you're never going to understand it because it almost changes monthly. Like, reels can work for, probably about 2-3 months ago, reels, just dropped off. And then they picked up, and it's weird. I think the more changes they make to it, and it just changes all the time. Trending sounds was working 6 months ago, and you link certain sounds to it, and then that dropped off. So it's probably 2 years ago I started looking at the reels, and then especially time lapses, and then retention. In how long a reel would go for. At that particular time, I think it was like anywhere between, I think it was like 10 to 15 seconds was like the real niche time frames.
I just don't know if I can do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, like what, especially with the podcast.
No,
100%. What clip can I have that's interesting? Well, I try my hardest to take like a 3-minute clip to cut it down to 1 minute, because I know you can do a minute and a half on a reel. But it's like, that feels like a series when you're watching.
I think now that it's like, it's something I was reading the other day. It's like if you've got a really long reel, you have a really short description. So, but if you've got a really short reel, like say anything over 6 seconds, anything under is just not. It's you're trying to cook the book sort of thing, and you're trying to tweak the system a little bit. So they say anything over 6 seconds, 7 seconds, and this is all just what I've read. It could be, but I don't know. But you have a long description, so when people are reading your description, the reel's kicking over.
Yeah.
So it's watch time, and then that will push the algorithm will push it out to people.
Yeah.
So, and they're the sort of things that, like, they're probably only in the last sort of 6 months that I've started looking at. But prior to that, it was really just reels and using. I get a lot of flack for integrating other people's reels on my page. That purely became last year thing because I stuffed my lawn and I had zero content, and I had a mud patch for basically the whole of winter. So I had to
call it mud and surf.
Yeah, it was
Change the name of the page.
Well, yeah, I get enough stick for not having any surf on there, but
that's true. I've never thought about that.
Well, initially I was like, I don't know, I like surfing and I like turf, so but it was there's ways you can piggyback on their algorithm as well, and trending.
So if you see any other video that's doing really good,
you can actually you can copy that to your own version. So you can mimic that if that's a a trending video in
I know
the
you can
niche.
get those templates and stuff that some
Yeah.
people use, where it's like, oh, this video went viral, and yeah,
Well, there's that, there's a lot of reels out there. Like I think you were talking to Nick last week around that whippersnipper one. And, that's, there's probably about, 100 reels out there with over, 500,000 to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million,
Yep.
whatever. And, there's also those rotary scissors.
Yeah.
I think Jacob's back lawn or backyard, no disrespect, I just can't remember it off the top of my head, but
He's very offended right now.
yeah, I know.
Can't
I
believe
feel
it.
terrible. No, I really do. That's shit house. But he does a reel with his rotary scissors, and that's booming. So I'll look at other
Well,
influencers.
let's grab my rotary scissors.
Yeah.
It's dark outside.
Yeah.
Too late.
And watch what they're doing. One, either do it similar because it's a trending. If there's enough of a
right.
Niche for that, that particular style of video, and then jump on that.
So there's a good opportunity there for small business owners, because I think
100%.
Instagram is such a good. I mean, I'm interested now because of the podcast and stuff, but I actually think it's such a good weapon for a small business, because the number of people I've talked to, like let's take you got Nick for example, but he doesn't run a business. So let's take Travis from the Lawn Lab. He's a small guy in a small town, and he's got more followers, I believe, or he's got very close to the number of followers on his Instagram than there are in his entire town. And so that's huge for a business.
If I was, and
when you talk about, like, it's taken you 2 years, but it's probably not taking you that much time when you compare to a return on investment time-wise from doing like a flyer drop, which you put it out and it's done, or like there's so many different, like just posting on Facebook pages or whatever. Like, you've got to do something to get your name out there. And I think Instagram's a fantastic way to either, one, get new work in, but even if you're not usually getting work in, you can use it to prove that you're someone who can be trusted. Like, here's the lawns we work on. Here's how many people follow us. Right? If you got 2 quotes, you're $1,000. They're $1,000. I go, why should we go with this guy? Well, one's got no online presence. This guy's got an online presence, and people seem to like him. I'll go with that one.
You could show off. I've always said that, like Instagram, especially in, I look at commercial guys' pages, and go,
yes,
oh heck, that's good. Like, I'll always, if I'm looking up a business, I'll go and look at their Instagram and see the work that they're doing. Can they fit into what I'm looking for? And if you've got an app, look at the quality of the tools they or the equipment they're using. And, if they're stale on Instagram or, I don't have Facebook or anything, but like,
I get what you mean. Like,
you're looking.
If you care about that, then you care about your work.
Well, and you can see what they can accomplish.
Yeah.
And I think it's if I was a business, I would just be, I look at my pages now a little bit of a business, and it's such a good tool especially for businesses,
Yeah. So I think it's good. Do you ever, you did mention to me when you're listening to Nick's that Nick was talking about how some people like to send you some funny offers, and you're like, what, so like, just by having a following, they want to piggyback on you and try and make some money for themselves, and like, here's $3.50 or whatever it is. Here's a hat.
Yeah.
Can you make us 75 reels? Devote the ress of your like 6 months to us or something. Like.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I gotta there's a lot of guys out there with huge platforms, and you look at Nick and you look at there's a heap you could run through. They got 60,000+ people, followers, and you got to look at where that's broken up in throughout the world and so forth like that. But it's from a business perspective, they're reaching a potential. You look at that reel that you spoke about last week. I think it was 20+ million. I think off the top of my head.
We're talking about the one that Nick did.
Yeah.
So Nick did this 15-second long, whatever it is, just him whippersnipping basically.
Yeah.
His edges. 20 million views, whatever.
Yeah, and you look at that, like from a business perspective, like that's a huge reach,
Yeah.
and I think it's interesting at the moment. Like a lot of companies are super like nice. They'll a lot of them meet you at the table, and it's got to be good business for both parties. That's the way I always say it. It's got to be good business. Like if you want certain content, it's going to come at a cost, and you know I guess from being in a business, I see costs and everything like that. So, I know what.
You're probably hard to pull the wool over
Well,
on
I
someone's
know
eyes
a
because you're a business guy.
whippersnipper, may retail for $700, but you probably landed it for a lot less than that.
Yeah.
So it's the reach that you're getting based on the cost that's being outlaid.
Let's say it's half price or whatever.
Yeah.
How much would you have to pay to get? Let's say you put up a reel. What would a normal reel get? Would you get 100,000 on average? 80,000?
Yeah, I look at anything under, like, I must admit, the last week or so, I'm probably not selling that well, but I've had poor retention, and I don't know what it is. I've been looking forward to this Perth trip to dive into it because I've got a little bit of time to look at the analytics and so forth like that.
You haven't been talking. They want your voice now.
Yeah, well, I don't know so much.
Maybe you could just take clips from the audio of this and put it over. At least we got tripods, all right?
Yeah.
It's an upgrade.
Exactly. So, but yeah, it's
So like average reel we're talking about.
Yeah, and
so what I was getting at is like how much would it cost if you're getting in front of, because I know that if you've got say 100,000, you're not usually getting 100,000. You'd probably get like say 50, 60, and then you'll get 300, and then you'll get 50, 60 again, and then you'll get 1 million or something. It's like it fluctuates, but
100% it does.
How much would a brand have to pay to say just get in front of 50,000 people?
Well, yeah,
like they, $200 for, worth of products. Like who cares? Like
and exactly,
they are getting a huge deal from that,
And I've said that to businesses before. Like, I'm happy to send the product, the equipment back, like, because I don't want a shed full of equipment either. It's not for me. But then a lot of guys and girls out there would love that equipment. It's still a very nice thing that they're doing. I guess I look at it from a business perspective and go, okay, like that's a lot of bang that you're getting for very little buck, but it's finding that happy medium too. It's got, as I said, it's got to be good business for both parties, because I won't usually post a reel or anything for a hat.
Well, I don't see you do much sponsored content, so it sounds like you're probably filtering a lot.
I do. I get a lot of offers, and I kind of drew a line in the sand, probably about 12 months ago, where or a little bit longer, where I was like, okay, well, where are we at? And I need to make, and I knew I was going to probably miss a lot of deals based on that. But I set up, a sole trader and went, okay, well, if I'm going to advertise something, it's going to be paid content. And similar to Nick, a lot of businesses or agencies that reach out on behalf of businesses are, you go through the negotiation, and that's right in my wheelhouse. Like, so
they probably don't want to hit him. They're probably used to.
I really enjoy that part. So
see, I do it too. That's the thing. It's I love confrontational moments because I don't like getting things heated. Heated moments are, but it's like when you're playing cricket or something like that, and the game's in the balance. It's like, and now it's fun.
Yeah, it's
it's that sort of feeling where it's like, an easy walk in the park negotiation. I mean, like if you're giving me the money, sweet. But if it gets tough, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, and and at the end of the day, it's something that you like doing. So it's like it's pretty easy. Like it's.
I think some people, they hate any confrontation. My wife is like that. She's just nice, gentle. You don't want to ever, she doesn't want to cross anybody or anything. And I talked about this before, actually. Like sometimes when people, did you listen to my episode? You might have heard the episode with Josh Sims where I was talking about we had somebody who was having a go at our guys for just doing work that was part of the contract. And it was like, I enjoyed standing up. I probably might have explained it a bit too strongly because I wasn't trying to, I enjoyed the fight.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it when you stand up to somebody who is a bully, who isn't used to someone standing up to them.
Yeah.
And you're just respectful, you're honourable, but you're immovable.
Yeah, it's just
You're
getting
not,
in the trenches, getting in the
yeah,
weeds,
exactly.
and
And they're like, I don't know how to deal with this. And sometimes you get that with business as well, when people lowball you or whatever.
yeah, 100%. Like, and and it's good, but I think it's I think I know, speaking to a lot of the American guys, it's all paid content over there. So I think it will slowly make its way over here. And I think, like everything, we're a little bit further behind in that aspect of it. But there's no niche that's not getting paid for content out there, and I've got, as I said, I've got friends that know influencers. I'm very mindful of that word, but like it's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be an interesting, and at the end of the day, you got to provide good content, and some of my content's not desirable to a business, so I'm cool with that. Like, I'm not gonna potentially put my face in front of the camera because I'm not there to sell it.
Your face.
Well, that and the product, it's like
It gets a bit forceful sometimes.
Well, I did, I did a contract with a company, and
you have to say,
no, that was super good, and it was through an agency, and it was I it was probably the most amount of work I've ever done on a reel. Like,
just the back and forth or the actual recording of the reel?
Oh, the back and forth was easy. That was worth it. But like the recording, like, again, I had like, a little can out the front with the camera, and I got like the basic iPhone, and I fully tried to talk and everything.
And you got nervous?
No, I thought I nailed it. And then I sent it off for review, and I'd never been rejected like that. So I just went back flipping the bottle and mowing the lawn and spraying the thing, and she's like, "That's perfect." And I was like, "Okay, I don't need to be that person."
Okay, yeah.
And they don't want, I guess, and my followers they're not used to that, like a Nick's approach or a Ben's approach. Like, they're not there for that.
Nick and Ben's personalities, they're not salesmen. They're not like over
No.
presenting. They're not like, what's the word? Like it's common with that American presenter style, like a Jimmy Fallon, where it's like, oh man, you know what you're doing in front of a camera, but is it genuine? Like, nice guy by the looks of it, but those guys, they're just being them. Just happens to work, and I think you're just doing the same thing. You're just being you.
Yeah, and that's, like, as I said, like for me, because I was like, okay, I got to get them an ROI on this, this product, and I've got to get them a return, and like I felt like so much pressure, and I was like, all right, like, well, wonder if they're going to tell me how many sales I've made from it, and like, and that's where my head was at. So I thought I had to be this,
totally get that.
So they got sick of me asking for the analytics, because I was like, oh, how many did you sell? Like, like,
you're going to ask me for the analytics on this.
Yeah, 100%. First question I asked when I walked in here. I go, give me a look at everyone else's analytics.
We got two screens. One of them is us, and one of them is podcast analytics. So we haven't even taken it off yet.
Nick, I'm coming for you.
I've even updated Nick on his analytics. But we're talking about analytics, because now I'm thinking about it. Is there anybody who's a lawn person who has more followers on Instagram in Australia?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of blokes in New South Wales. They're like, they're big,
I'm not all over Instagram.
Yeah, I think they're in.
What's their names?
Tim the
Lawnmower Man, of course.
Yeah.
And Nathan.
Yes, there.
Yeah.
So
because I saw them more as they are lawn guys, but they're not lawn guys in the way that you're a lawn guy. Because like you and Nick and Ben, Brent and Klein from the Aussie Lawn, where they're really shooting content on their own lawn, whereas they're doing the Fremo Fridays, the overgrown stuff. There's also Sean from Blade Runner on YouTube. He's got a big following on YouTube who does the same thing.
Yeah.
Goes down with all the overgrown stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that style. That's a completely different style. But yeah, no, those guys get insane.
Yeah, they're huge. Yeah, huge
And
numbers.
we were talking about Tim on the podcast because, yeah, and I know that he does listen as well. So hi, Tim. Hi, Ben. Who else are we shouting out today? Tim, he's the same as well. Where I mean, I love watching his stuff because it's not salesy. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that you don't get that vibe. I mean, at least I get the vibe with the Jimmy Fallons and the Jimmy Kimmels and those guys where I'm like, oh, it feels a little forced. It feels a little like, when the new guest comes on and they're like, "How have you been?" It's like, you don't even know who they are, do you?
Yeah, I'd prefer to do a full description in the bottom of the thing, like just detail how I felt, everything like that about it, and let someone read it, than me try and waffle my way through it and say like 300 times, and and it just not actually flow, and so I think it's each person's got their own style. Like I agree, like that Tim's is solid. He gives you.
I get the feeling that Tim just literally he doesn't even. He might have a couple of tries sometimes, maybe like he slips up, but like he just records, and he's just got a funny sense of humor, and and that works, man. And brands, they want to work with that.
100%.
And if Nick tried to copy him, or if he tried to go vice versa, or if it's like, and that's the thing that we used to think back with normal media or traditional media, that you had to be like somebody to get people interested in you. So if you weren't the Bert Newman or whoever it was in the old school days, Hamish and Andy, for example, and I love Hamish and Andy, right? But you can't be Hamish and Andy. But what's happened is they, the TV lords would have never let such weird niche content like someone time lapsing their lawn, and that would have never gotten past the committee. No committee. Talking about committees before, like no committee would have ever accepted that. Yet tens and hundreds of thousands of people want to see that content for whatever weird reason.
100%, and then it's if a company wants a link attached to it, it's the click rate. Like as I said, like for some of mine, like it's using a mower from a brand, but then that will then force someone to go search that up.
Well, don't tell me brand names, right? I don't want to throw people in the bus, but have you ever gotten a deal with somebody and you got the mower or the whippersnipper and it just sucked, and you were like, "Oh, how did I go about this?"
Nah, not really. Like,
that's good.
Yeah, like I haven't done huge amounts of equipment, because again, I think I'm a certain niche that certain businesses don't. They want the guy to be in front of the camera, and but it's certain brands have linked up and and worked with me, and I've worked with them, and it's been good. Like I haven't really done huge amounts. Like the Ellet that I did, that was a hell of a machine, and I thought it was cool. Like the interchangeable cartridges and so forth like that, and I ended up linking with the Ellet team in the UK and doing a bio for them on my journey and so forth like that. But I think I had a couple of hiccups, but I think I was one of the last guys in Australia.
It'd
been through the wars,
yeah.
And they said have a go, and I was like, all right. So I did a full reno on it, and I dug for Pippies with it, so it had a couple of hiccups, but that was so good, like, in fixing it. And
just to pause you there, Doug for Pippies is a very Gold Coast. Because my family's from the Gold Coast, so I know what that means. But it's like, people are like, what? It means he's gone quite deep. Because Pippies are little, like shell creatures that are in the ocean, right? Or in the beach.
Yeah, you can cook them or you can use them as bait.
Yeah, anyways. I was like, man, you're the only person I've ever heard in this state ever say that. But you were trashing the outlet.
Yeah, I get and it wasn't a bad machine. Like, it was actually a good machine. But no, there has been a lot of product that I have had some liquid products before, like that that just didn't work for me, and again, that's where it was actually a pinnacle part of where I drew a line in the sand, because it was like they um have been lucky enough to live close to or across the road from a guy that worked in this industry, and um guided me through negotiations of influences and so forth like that. So he's been
Right.
really helpful, and this company uh sent product, and I was like, "Oh, sweet, thank you so much." Like, and did a couple of reels, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, but then got an email like probably 4 months later, 5 months later, saying, "Hey, we haven't seen any reels or anything like that." So
How much product they send you?
just a couple of bottles.
Like $50,
I don't know. Yeah, I'd never really looked at the retail price, but
but like sort of like $20 a bottle or something, two, three
yeah,
bottles.
maybe, yeah,
Yeah, like nothing.
not huge amounts, and
Not like golf course style fertilizer, like
no,
no, herbicides with like
no,
$1,000
no,
or
no,
something.
no.
No.
So it was, that's the thing. Like, I linked it a couple of times, but then to get that, and I was like, fired back, So, and had everything documented. So, went back with a pretty detailed response, and
Well, 4 months later is weird
it was
too.
super weird, and it got me off guard. So I was
Do you think
ready.
someone maybe was under pressure with their job or
I
something?
think they'd probably pushed out a fair bit of product, and
They're like,
to
where's that
people,
return on
and then
investment?
people were probably asking questions on the return. So
Mm,
I yeah, I had everything documented. So I was like, all right, let's dance.
yeah, but I feel like as well with like you gotta know if you're the marketing manager or
Mm,
you're the marketing person, you know what Facebook ads cost,
mm.
and you know what $50 would get you. So I don't know, like, yeah, I don't like the
No, I didn't like the pushiness, and I, to your point, like, did I have any? I actually didn't, and maybe it was me, the user of it, like, and I'm always mindful of that, like, it's me putting it out, and did I follow everything to a T,
yeah. Did it rain?
Yeah,
Yeah. Did
and
you
I
forget
just
something? Yeah,
didn't have the results that I'd had on previous products that I use,
yeah. Like competitors, basically.
Yeah, and I was like, "Ugh, I'm not really happy to," like, I didn't want to put out any more, because I was like, I'm not kinda getting the results either."
Yeah,
So I went back to the other product, and obviously took a while to get the lawn back where it was, and that was in between, like, having a baby as well, so it kinda went
yeah.
on the back
So
burner.
you're sort of like you couldn't 100% pinpoint the product itself, but the gut feel you have is that it
Yeah, I
wasn't quite.
wasn't getting the results I usually got.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as well. Like it's funny. Like I get this. Uh, there is something about which you probably feel as well. Before the podcast, people would ask my opinion on stuff,
Mm.
right? And you just tell them. Whereas after the podcast, it's like, well, I tell them, but now I feel a little bit like they're going to take it more seriously. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean? Like before, they'd be like, "Oh, what fertilizer do you use for your rhinos?" "Oh, I do this and that, whatever." And I've tried a few things, and like blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Where now it's like if somebody asks me, it's like I'm still the same guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, I've always, like, because I've had so many people say you should start, similar to like a lawn care program, or some,
right?
along that, like, do something where you can market it. And one, I don't have time, but two, it's like I'm so big on going to people with a skill set, and
Mm.
for me, it's like I always point them in the direction of professionals, like someone that's doing it every day, because they're the ones with knowledge. Not all, sometimes people get it wrong, but it's like, if you the people I point them to, they've got runs on the board. So it's like, there's so many. I think I heard you talking to, um, is it Lenny from
Yeah, yeah,
Australian Lawn Phoenix? Like, and some of the comments that people write, and it's like everyone's got their own experiences on how they've fixed their lawn, but it's like, is it actually the right way? Because I'm sure there's blokes out there and girls with sheds full of products and
yeah,
thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, because someone said that you need to buy this,
yeah,
and to Lenny's point, it's like, some of those products are so expensive, and I'm mindful of that people have if I say, oh, use this and it's 150. That might be in my budget, but it might not be in someone else's. And, and you got to be so careful because that's other people's money,
Yeah.
and I've always been mindful of that. It's not my place to give advice without,
No,
yeah.
I'm on the same page as you with that, because you can. A lot of what you do in the industry, like it's more about consistency. But what happens, like, it's so common, like, for people to come to us as a business and be like, "I've neglected my lawn for 6 months. Can you flip it around?" Yeah, we can do that. But if the stuff that you were doing to neglect it to start with, that needs to change first. And what will happen is you can just go and be like, basically, if you oversimplify things to get the sale in the short term, just get the job, win the contract, whatever it is, tell them what they want to hear, get that money in, and then 3 months later they're struggling again. It's like, oh, well, because you didn't do this and that, whatever. But if you told them the truth from the get-go, so if you did that so I feel that pressure with business is that you can, if you start getting hungry, and we're not, which is good. But, I remember back in the early days, people come to you and, especially when you're young in business, you can get hungry for that. You need some sales coming through, tell people what they want to hear. You can do it from a brand's perspective in an Instagram deal. Just, we need the money. So we'll tell the brand what they want to hear to get them out. And we'll tell the people something that's not quite 100% our experience, but we're getting some cash through or whatever. But long-term people see through that. And so
100%. And that's the thing. If I started just selling things willy-nilly on the page, which, as I said, like, there's offers come through to do affiliate links and everything like that on a, probably a weekly basis, but it's got to be in line with what I think is in the niche that I'm in and we're in, but it's also, it's got to be something I enjoy too, like, and there's so many weird, but that's just, marketing from other businesses as well. It's like they just throw it out there to 1,000 people and see who bites.
Let's go on to the business side of things. So this is something that this is the selfish side of the interview, because for a lot of people who listen to the podcast, they will know that it's so hard to grow a business in the residential, specifically in the residential part of lawn and care industry. If you've got 10 employees, you're one of the biggest companies in the country. You might be top 10 or something like that in the country. That is nothing, right? I mean, your smallest shop wouldn't have 10 people involved with it, right? And you've got 60 something, over 50.
Just shy of 70.
Right, like, so it's just a very difficult business to grow in. And the challenge that I was having a chat with a guy this week, right? It is so hard to run a business and be a manager and have your head across all these different types of things. And I've dropped the ball many, many times. This is my biggest weekness as a business owner, is how I've managed my staff in the past. I remember I sent a text message out, which was just what I felt was a small correction text message, and I was completely oblivious to how it was going to affect the staff, which was like, hey, just letting you guys know. Do you know what it was? Okay. Some guy was mowing a lawn and there was like a paper bag or something on the lawn, right? And he's got the rotary and he's just going to run over it thinking like it's a paper bag. The rotary is just going to suck it up. And it's cut this paper bag into about 700 pieces. And so most of it's gone in the thing. And a lot of it's just gotten hooked onto the lawn. And then he just keeps mowing. Now, I would have done that because I would have just gone, I think it'll suck it up. But then I would have gone over it until all the paper was gone. I would have gone, damn, I should have just picked up that one piece instead of. But he's left it, right? Clients come home with shredded paper all over their lawn. And they've been like, what the hell's this? Right? So we just sent in a message. It just didn't get received the way I didn't realize, so someone's taken it to really to heart. They've been busting their gut out. Maybe they were rushed trying to get some things done, had some problems happening, doing the best they can. And I see this a lot in the industry, right? And it's really hard. And I don't think there are figures in the industry who I think a lot of people, because there isn't the bigger businesses in the residential side, they don't have that experience. What you have as an experience in your career, running teams, and obviously it's not you, everything on your shoulders. You're
Yeah.
part of a team that's doing this, but that's your world.
Mm.
And like we said at the start of the podcast, the type of people who end up working in retail are the type of people in terms of their socioeconomics. Like we talk about, like a lot of people, if you've never hired people before in the gardening scene, a lot of them fell into it.
Yeah.
Same with retail, so there's those challenges. So I'm really interested. So what are you doing? Well, let's start with this. What are the basics that you look for in your team to make sure things that are going well without it seeming, you know what I mean? Like you got to have a standard. What are the things that you can look for that you can keep the standard without going, this guy's always over my shoulder,
Yeah.
Let's start with the hardest question of
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Well, it's understanding your people. Your people are your most powerful tool. And that's something that I've learned over the years.
Yep, some of our people have been powerful tools.
Yeah.
Oh no, you meant that positive. No, I know.
But yeah, like and knowing them, it's super, I guess straightforward, but like understanding how they operate. And that's, I very rarely text, because I'm a little bit old school in that facet. Like I came through when you have a conversation and, as I said at the start, I don't mind getting into the weeds and having a bit of a conversation to get, because especially in the new generation, text is so familiar to them. And to your point, it can be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
So we have so many different processes in place that, we've built over the time. And I say we, because I'm a part of a team, and, that we don't always get it right. I don't always get it right. There's sometimes I'll, I guess, miss the mark on certain things, but it's owning that and to your point, owning that message or whatever it may have been, and being better for the next time. As you said, you had the best intentions, but it's
just understanding those little things, because like there's these mistakes, things that you would see as basic. So I would say a lot of the people who are running a small business in this sector, they're probably the same level of responsibility with staff as a shop manager. So, and you're overseeing all of these shop managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the mistakes, like the texting, that are things that come up regularly with your shop managers that are like no-brainers to you? Because I betcha we're doing the same things.
Yeah, and let's we have different processes like in place of keeping the shops clean and maintained at the end of the day. Leaving them in a presentable standard. That doesn't always happen. There may be different facets to that, and then. And as I said, I've been putting in a lot of time into thinking of how this can link, and it may be a case of certain things have led to them not being able to achieve that in the timeframes or the hours that we've sent down to the
Like
business.
having a compassion, understanding that.
Yeah, and it's understanding, it's that, especially in the new age now, it's that whole firm but fair approach doesn't really work anymore.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, a lot of old school managers, I came through, the time when, the strong approach was the best approach.
Yeah.
And the new generation now has evolved, and a lot of people will go, nah, they're lightweights and so forth like that. But that's the reality that we work in, and I've been in retail for 20 years and I've been managed that way. And unfortunately, I've probably managed that way,
Yeah.
but it's, you evolve with, especially, and I say the new generation, but they want to be heard. They need to be, you give them the time and you work through their challenges with them. Ultimately, you can still get the outcome that you desire.
So I'll ask you in a sec, how do you get people to feel heard? But I'll tell you this little story because I'm the same as you. I started my business when I was like 19, right? I started gardening when I was 15, and I was very responsible for a 15-year-old. You know,
Mhm.
still an idiot. But I was given trust by my neighbours, right? Then when I was 18, I became the head groundskeeper of a high school, right? Just before I turned 19, and then, you know, towards the end of my 19th year, I started my business. I haven't really had a boss
Mm.
in the same way. I've had a lot of responsibility early on because I just got things done. It was my personality, right?
Mhm.
And I never really had good leader mentors in business because of that, but
Mm.
I did in swimming. So,
Mhm.
and I was a competitive swimmer, and I was coached by some very high end coaches. And it was the best coaches that got the best out of me were ones that were really quite tough. Because when you're an idiot, a young idiot in your late teens and early 20s, you need an older figure to be like, you're an idiot, you
Mm.
know? But if you're open to it, you can receive it. And that was my personality. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I've struggled with some level of management. And I don't think, you know, like not to a useless degree, but it is that more having people feel heard side.
Mm.
Because I think it's very similar to you, is that I liked it when people just told me how it was.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll just tell you how it is. Oh, you don't like it like that? Oh, okay, that's weird. You know,
Yeah.
it's not weird, but you know what I mean. It's unusual to me because that's not how I am.
Yeah.
So how do you go about, like because it's a nice buzzword, isn't it? Everybody would agree with you. And this is the thing, like as soon as you start managing, you know how to manage people until you start managing people,
Mm.
you know? So everyone's like, oh yeah, of course you want people to feel heard.
Yeah.
Okay, go do it. How do you do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Yeah, and we've got a thing that I've always referred to. You know, there's key holder managers that can hold a key and have the title of a manager, and then there's managers,
Right.
you know, who understand the management of people, you know,
Yeah.
and uh, that's what I look for. The people that can, you know, anyone can open and close a door. Well, sometimes, you know, and you know, run the tills and you know, put the clothes out and so forth like that. But how do you get people to do that? Is something that you know it comes over time, you know, and I guess there's no perfect answer on how to do that, but it's working with them side by side and knowing their strengths and weaknesses, you know, and
Well,
link.
is there things that you do to make sure it doesn't get missed? Like, do you schedule in time to chat with people?
Yeah, I do now, and that probably yeah, we've gone through so many different approaches, you know, uh, pre-COVID, you know, because retail really shifted post-COVID.
Because a lot of people went online, right?
Yeah, but more just we had to evolve on how we communicated, um, you know, because it was so important to ensure that your team was supported. So we were doing daily, you know, video calls, you know, so they could see a face. You could make eye contact with
So
someone.
you're talking to your store managers.
I did a couple to stores, so from my level down, so they understood, you know, that we were there to support them, and especially in the tough conversations when we had to stand people down, you know, during the closures and stuff. That was something that, you know, if the regionals and area managers wanted support on, I'd jump on those. And work through that with them. Everyone understood what was happening, but it's showing that no matter what level you're at, you're a part of the team, you
Yeah.
know? Um, but then post COVID, you know, post COVID, how we've evolved, like we have a lot of our stores are remote, you know, out of Southeast Queensland and over here in the West, and
It's
also,
a long way over here.
yeah, it is, and that's a challenge within its own, you know, making them feel a part of Southeast Queensland where head office is. You know, even though our culture is very strong throughout the business,
Yeah. So
it's
you're sort of like you've got. I think what you're trying to say is you're trying to balance that distance,
mm,
and that's what's so relatable to this industry. Because I mean, we're not talking about the other side of the country,
mm,
but you can't be there looking over everyone's shoulder all the time. It's exactly what happens in the residential lawn care scene,
yeah,
and that's what's so interesting comparatively, to take your I guess transfer the information across. So,
mm,
you, do you still do So daily video calls if you can't see people face to face.
Not so much. I don't do them directly with the store managers. Our team, area managers, and
So you talk to area manager, would you?
yeah,
And
like
then they would talk to store managers.
yeah,
And
like
they
I'll
would,
touch base daily with what I say is my team,
yeah,
in regards to the area managers and regional managers. But they will touch base daily with uh their store management team on a daily basis, multiple times throughout the day.
yeah.
The that so much is that's kind of become the norm, video calls, and that we almost got a little bit ridiculous there for a period, of how many video calls you would have. You wouldn't usually see that many people, you know, that regularly, and you're like, "Oh, well, let's have a video call," and once you extract what it is, there's a lot of benefits from that, it feels like it's a face-to-face conversation, and that's important because you can tell a lot from body language too. I don't like interviewing or virtually, because I think it's important to
Face to face.
face to face, see the
Yeah.
body language, understand the person, see how they're moving and so forth like that. So, but in regards to how we and how I liaise with the team in the West, is we've got a very experienced team over here, but we just had a transition into a new area manager not so long ago, and we put a lot of I guess processes in place into day-to-day communication with myself and his team, so I could understand where his business was at to ensure that he's asking the right questions of his team, and then he's giving me the right information.
So you're basically regularly checking up on him.
Twice a day,
Yeah.
morning and evening, at the start.
Interesting.
And I would set certain guidelines on what we want to talk about in the morning, reviewing your business from the previous day, understanding where certain stores went wrong, where certain stores did well, and starting with what they did well. I naturally went there went wrong because I'm always looking for the red of where I can improve something. So we started conversations with positives, and then we worked through the challenges. But then he would go off and talk to his team, and I made sure that that was face to face via video call. So they started to understand him, because it was something that we didn't have back in the day, but you could always tell people's tones over a voice. You can't when they're having a good day, bad day, because video calls wasn't a thing 10 years ago. It was, but like you didn't use it.
No.
But you used to be able to tell if a manager answered the phone and sighed, all right, we're in for it here, or someone, their tone just wasn't there, and you'd pick up on certain things, so you'd get through the conversation, then you kick over stones. So it's I always go back to it, but it's so much people driven, and setting up certain processes, and then at the end of the day, we would reflect on that day. What expectations did you give the team, and were they a success? So it's a form of micromanaging, but what that's doing is it's setting in, I guess, ground rules for him of what the expectations are of an area manager within the business that I work in. So he knows the right questions to ask. His business understands, or his businesses understand what he's going to be asking and what he's looking at to making that those shops are success. So it's
I guess what you're saying is like, and we talked about this very briefly before we came on, right? There's this line, I guess it's like a fade, what you call a spectrum, right? On one extreme, you'd have micromanaging, like true over the top, controlling micromanaging, right? And then on this other side, you've got zero management. And it's like, say this is white and this is black. And it's like some people feel as soon as you get into the grey, where there's some form of management, they don't know that's micromanagement. And they come back out into because it's like the micromanagement's got this bad, it's got bad marketing team, which I understand. But you actually have to have some form of standard to hold people to. Otherwise, they'll just do whatever they want.
100%. And you need to know where they're, prime example, like you said, you need to know what they're going out. If you've got in your business, like a crew team leader going out, what their expectation is for the day, and did they meet their KPIs?
Yeah.
On the way back.
But you're saying with the having it been people driven and focused and stuff, you're really just saying, well, it would have been easier for you to send a text message, but we'll have a phone call.
100% it would have been.
We'll have a video phone call. What can we do? Now, we're not in the same state, but so what can we do to make it be like that? And it's almost like, I like some people might feel like twice a day. That's insane. But I can understand, because one of the things that's killed me in the past is, well, let me give you an analogy that people might understand a little bit better. Do you ever remember when you were back in in school, and someone would say something, and maybe they said something about a friend of yours, and you didn't stand up for your friend?
Mm.
And I'll just let it slide. And then you they said something again, and you're like, I'll just let it. A week later they're doing something again, and they do it again, and then they do it again, and all of a sudden they're bad mouthing your friend around, and you don't know what to do, because you should have said it the first time. Stop, don't bad. That's my friend. Whatever. 10 times in, you feel powerless, like you can't do it. People relate to that. That happens with managing people, right? If they move a quarter of a millimeter past the line, you go, it's a quarter of a millimeter. It'll be okay. And then they do 1 millimeter, and then they do 3 centimeters, and then they do, and all of a sudden you're 50 centimeters over the line, which is just not acceptable, because you didn't answer that little thing right at the beginning. It snowballs and it snowballs. And I've been so guilty. I've gotten better at this over the years, but 5 years, 6 years ago, right, I was like, go do your thing, and then we'd get either I would see an after photo that wasn't good enough, or I would get a call from a client that, they had a complaint or something. And now we'll deal with something. But what I knew is that there was 5 or 6 moments before that. So it's almost like the slight.
It's like avoiding the challenging conversations, to an extent.
Yeah.
And
you tell yourself that you don't need to do it.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. But it always is.
No, 100%. And that's what we bang on about is, it's something that I've built. We've all been guilty of it. It was something I learned only probably 12, 18 months ago in a leadership course. It was, I've always worked off lists, and what you need to accomplish for the week. And you'd have, a list of 20 things, and you'd always go to the easy ones. Because one, you're knocking them off a list and it looks like you're really achieving something.
Yeah.
Let's say 5 of those things are null and void because they're in 3 months' time or something. It's just a mental note.
Yeah.
But there'd always be like 2 or 3 things that you just go, oh shit, that's going to cause me uncomfortableness. It's a challenging conversation. They're going to get upset with me or something along those lines. It's not actually about you. They potentially don't even know they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
So it's like certain things that I've implemented into my own personal week now is like, out of that 20, 30 things that I've got on my list, I extract 5. And I rank them from 1 to 5. 1 being the most important thing.
Yeah.
To 5, because ultimately you're still going to get your job done each week. But if you can accomplish 5 additional things, it'd be actually interesting. A lot of people do this. Like, it's something that we learned, and I did it. I put 10 things down this first week. I was like, I can do my job and then still achieve 10 things. I actually only did 1.
Right.
And it's like, it may be something so easy, but you will attempt to start 3 of those things. It might be a little project or something like that you're working on. But what that evolved to is something now that where I go, okay, non-negotiable, it always starts with people. Is there a conversation that I need to have with someone on a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning when they get back, And sure enough, that's the first conversation. 1, because they probably know the conversation's coming or it needs to be addressed. And because 90% of the time, most people will leave conversation to a Friday arvo.
Yeah.
We'll knock off and we'll have we'll knock it over on a Friday. Not only does that,
I can see what you mean. Yeah.
It's coming back to people, because it's like, 1, that person may carry that whole week. You're personally carrying that conversation that whole week. That person, you feel good on Friday arvo because you've clipped the wings and you've got it off your chest now. But then they go on to their weekend feeling rubbish. They come back Monday super, demotivated. where if you eliminated on Tuesday, Monday morning, whatever it may be, whenever or that
happened,
day
yeah.
when it happens, you're not carrying that baggage. The person knows it's probably coming anyway, so it's eliminated.
Yep.
And the business moves on.
Well, there's two things I'm noticing here. The first is what you're saying there about people ruminating on that emotion, right? It grows. And I've had times before where we've had guys who a lot of their stuff that they do is really quite good, and then every now and then, I'll give you an example. Everything in the warehouse has a place, right? And I hate it because we don't have much space. We've got 170-ish square meters. Everything parked in is a bit like Tetris. There's some wiggle room, right? But so if you have a sprayer, right, that you don't quite put away, you don't see it, it'll get driven over, right? And I had this problem where I saw things, tiny little things, just getting left slightly out of place, slightly out of place, slightly out of place. I didn't bring it up, didn't say anything, and then I see it again. So it's like Monday. I don't know what day it was. Monday, I see it. Yeah, I'll just put it back. They're not here. This is what I'm saying about the little millimeter. Tuesday, something else small. It starts ruminating. If Friday something tiny happens, you feel like this is happening every day, and how dare you not do that? But actually, if you maybe had said it to them on Monday, it probably wouldn't have happened on Friday.
Probably wouldn't even been a big deal either.
Exactly, and then it's really hard when, let's say, you got some financial problems as well, like say someone's not paying an invoice, or you're stressed about whether or not someone's going to accept this quote or not. You got a big thing you've put in, and your other stresses that happen in business. Maybe next week's raining. So you're trying to just normal business stress. It's so hard to deliver that clearly without getting frustrated, all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's allowed a behavior. So ultimately, that behavior has been allowed for 5 days. So for you to clip them let's just say on a Friday after it's happened, were they even unaware? And you strip that right back. Is there is there a guideline to how you like that warehouse set up or a business set up? Is there a way you want those certain things, a policy or a process on how those things are meant to be set up in regards to a warehouse layout? So if there's certain things in place, guidelines, and that's something that we're very big on, is because we've got such a youth market, young people, and and we've got a mature age group as well. But everyone needs to know what the policy is and what the process is.
And it sounds so. I remember back when I was, because I started this business when I was young. I had my first full-time employee when I was 21 years old, right? And it's like, policies and procedures. Oh, yuck, But it's sort of like, it's like eating your vegetables, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to have guidelines,
They're yuck too. I mean, I like vegetables, but it's like if you just had KFC the whole time,
you're a big fan of KFC, aren't you?
I actually don't eat that much KFC. I do like it as a treat. I do like my Pepsi Max, but anyways, it's just a joke. But you can't eat KFC all the time, and that's sort of the immature, my toddler. She'd be like, "Give me cheese toasties all the time," and it's like if you get to 25 and you've matured with your diet. I don't want cheese toasties all the time. I prefer a 6-pack. I think it's the same with the policies and procedures. The immature toddler business owner is like policies and procedures. No, thanks.
Yeah, I think because we've always had them. I'm a stickler for them. You know what I mean? And it's something that you can't hold an expectation if there's not one there. You know what I mean? You've got to have be able to identify the expectation, train them on the expectation, and then you're able to hold them accountable to it.
And that's a lot of time that small business owners don't want to put in.
That's time and money,
But you put in that time somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like you're going to put it into rehiring somebody, or you're going to put it into stressing about the job, and that's why small business is not for everybody, and hiring is not for everybody.
No, because
it's a huge commitment. I said there was two things that you pointed out before when I was talking about the first thing was how you do ruminate and get worse. But the other thing is that you know, if you just did something, it's not that big of a deal to fix it. Small little things. So most of the problems. So, for example, if I was there with the guy who ran over the paper bag, you know, and we were can we just run that mower over it again? Oh yeah, sure, no worries. It's something about the delay of time that makes it feel, I don't know, bigger, especially if you have to call someone up about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some feeling. So I can totally understand where, just in the same way that if I was on the crew with somebody and just said something and I was there, because I'm there, they're almost expecting a comment at some
Well,
stage.
they probably wouldn't have done it either.
Probably not. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, but you get what I mean. It
No, I know what you're
softens the
saying,
blow
yeah.
a bit, and I can also see how by having scheduled in 2 calls a day or whatever the schedule needs to be, they're also expecting a comment. They're also expecting it, so it doesn't feel so hard because the phone calls or the video calls or whatever are about having those.
Well, it's about, celebrating the wins too, and they know that they've got that time, undivided attention.
Yep.
You know,
You're not playing Candy Crush.
No.
You're not eating
not
Zinger
scrolling
boxes.
Instagram. But yeah, no, then they know that that's our time to talk business, and review it, and they can go home knowing that they've, accomplished what they set out to, or they've got direction for the next day.
Yeah.
So it's something that, as I said, like it always comes back to your people, but it's what you put in is what you're going to get out of them. And that's really the most simplest way I've ever tried to break it down. If you put nothing into them, in investment into them, training, time, understanding them, you're going to get the same out.
We got a message this week from somebody who didn't know that you were coming on. They were like, you should do a podcast on essentially managing people, right? And he said, I didn't get too much more information on the situation, but it sounded like that he had fired somebody this week or last week or recently. And he says the hardest thing he's ever done in business, right? People are wired that way. Like what we talked about, some people hate confrontation, but I remember being in that situation as well. Now, usually the hard people to fire, there's this middle ground. You have your ace, your all-stars, right? Then you have your dunces. And it's like the idiots are easy to fire. You probably don't hire them to start with, right? But if a guy doesn't rock up to work 2 out of the first on time, he's super late, whatever, 2 out of the first 3 days, it's like, mate, like, don't come back, please. But it's the people who they're just not quite right and they're not quite wrong, and they're the ones that are tough to manage.
Yeah, 100%.
How do you what line do you draw with okay, you're not part of this team anymore, like this can't work?
Yeah, it's a super lengthy process.
So because that's the thing I'm getting at, because I think you've started that management. People aren't doing that management process you talk about where you're regularly checking it. Doesn't have to be 2 video calls a day, right? I think you're more saying that because that guy was brand new.
Was, and my senior guys, like once a day.
Yeah.
Very quick, to the point, bang.
Has everything going.
Yeah.
See, that is more than I would expect still.
Yeah.
But it's probably that, that would be where I would be the one wrong. That's what I'm saying, because that's not my experience. I don't have that level of experience, I should say. So you're regularly checking in with people. Cool. What about that would make that easier conversation because people would know where they stand when it comes to firing because you haven't let things go. You haven't let them fester, sorry.
Yeah.
But then how about that process? What are you doing to make it, I guess, assuming everything's black and white legally, right? Like it's just, you're just regularly underperforming, no outliers like that. What sort of processes do you do? How does it look?
Yeah, like these days, if I was a private business, I'd always be seeking advice from, like, especially with just the rules and regulations and what we have to do as a business. I see this on a weekly basis, unfortunately. Some of it's not at our doing, some of it's, potentially we've missed the mark, other times it's people make decisions and make silly decisions.
Well, you've
So,
got 3,000 people there, right?
mm,
So that's a completely different
yeah,
level
you're gonna get all different types of.
there's going to be things, I guess, that are going to be missed.
Mm,
I guess in a small business scenario where, let's say, you got 3 employees to 10 employees,
mm,
you're probably not missing so much.
mm.
Would you still, in that person?
Yeah, depending on the circumstances, like I'm just trying to if you're trying to hold them accountable for something that is not, we've been in situations where we've wanted to move to termination, but based on the fact that they haven't signed off on a policy and we can't move. So I don't know from a small business owner's point of view, and that's why I'm sort of more. We're very cautious in that aspect of
The other thing we should say is that your role isn't exactly HR.
no,
So this
no.
isn't exactly fitting in with, because you're in the management role and HR would probably be,
Yeah, they're the experts,
yeah.
and that's my
So people don't take this as legal advice.
no,
but
definitely not.
but
And
it's
that's
more the experience that you have on how to have those conversations, I guess.
well, it's very similar to what I said, like with Instagram. I think that's maybe what I'm not. That's not my wheelhouse.
Yep.
My wheelhouse is understanding the people and executing them to make, at the end of the day, put money in the tills. But it's when we get to that point, we usually, that's when we lean on our, HR, people and culture, departments, and they usually tell us, you can run the gauntlet, you're good,
Yep.
or no. So, and that's where I'm like, that's where I'd always seek advice, because the
Right.
flip side of it, if you get it wrong, it's costly.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this story because I once got taken to the commissioner. I don't know the exact name, but basically we had somebody who we fired who tried to get us for unpaid overtime
Mm-hmm.
and unfair dismissal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is a crazy story. Okay. We had a guy, this is only last year as well. Probably about exactly a year ago, a little bit over. We had a guy who, I mean, obviously I'm not going to name names or anything, but I had a phone call from a workplace provider, and they were like, "We've got a guy. We can see you looking for a part timer, someone with well over a decade of experience, had a Cert 3 in horticulture, right? And he's coming back from an injury, and so he could only really do 2 days a week." I'm like, "Yeah, we've got some jobs that are a bit lighter, like it's still physical, but Anyway, so I gave this guy a phone call, just to get like a 5-minute feelers out for him, And after the phone call, I was like, "Come do a trial day. Get to know the team, see what the work is like, see if you can actually handle it." Does a trial day perfectly fine, right? And we do this as paid trial days, right? And that's usually how we were going for that sort of. He was only going to be casual, so like if he was a crew leader, we would have done a whole interview, process, stuff like that. So it was quite relaxing. Anyway, so he did that day. Then he did another day. Then he did a third day. And on the third day, and he's doing 2 days a week or something. This is like a week and a half later.
Yeah.
And the lead gardener we had at the time was like, "Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, good, sweet." And he found out that there was a girl on our team who was getting $1 more an hour than he was. Right now, she had the same qualifications. She actually had one slightly better qualification, right? But he had a lot more experience, right? But anyways, so he was like, "I shouldn't be getting paid, blah, blah." And he snapped and he really lost his temper, right? Now, he never took it out on any of the other employees or anything like that, but everyone felt super, super awkward. And I was like, "This is weird. This came out of nowhere. We had never seen anything like that before in any of the conversations or anything." But 3 days in, so I was like, I can either sack him now and just go, "Look, mate, you're 3 days in. We don't tolerate that sort of stuff."
Yeah.
Or we basically say, "That's a warning. We don't tolerate this sort of stuff. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're just having a real bad day,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And, because he didn't get physical or anything. Gave him the benefit of the doubt. Shouldn't have. 3 working days later, which was like a couple of weeks later, right? Very similar thing happens. So I had a conversation with him. I said, like, but the first time, it's like, this isn't, we can have you back on these conditions. If you're not going to accept those conditions, we just can't have you back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and the reason why we let him back as well is that he apologized. He knew that he had crossed the line. That was not okay. Had lost his temper.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he hadn't said anything. So it was like, he's understood. Okay. He's appreciated it. He, okay, we'll see,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 3. So he did a total of 6 working days, and I can't even remember what the second thing was. But yeah, he lost his temper again, and it was anyway. I remember what it was now. It was a miscommunication. There was a miscommunication and misunderstanding, and for some reason we don't know. Like, I'm not going to get into the story, but he just got really offended at somebody again, and so I was like, well, it's clearly his temperament. And so anyway, we just said to him, look, mate, like,
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. So he then took us to unfair dismissal, unpaid overtime. And what was fascinating was Fair Work came back and we had gotten our award wrong. But we'd gotten our award wrong in the right direction from our perspective. So, I mean, he'd only done 6 days. So it was like not even... It might not have even been $1,000 he was paid. I don't know. You know? It was not a lot of money he was paid. And it came back that we had overpaid him, I think $6.50. Right? Like, we had made a mistake, but it was it was nothing, right? And these are things that only ever come up in these scenarios. Like, in the real world, people don't care about this sort of minutes and seconds. And the unfair dismissal, it's like you can't unfairly dismiss somebody who, like, in all these scenarios. So, but we still went to a hearing with what's the word? A conciliation meeting with a justice of the peace or whoever it was, and just sat there, and it was just like his dad was there, him and his dad, and it was just me and the lady over there, and the person who was writing the notes, and it was like, this guy has lost his mind.
Yeah.
Like, anyways, and so he wanted. It was 6 months between the, roughly between the when he had lost his job with us and
made the
meeting, and he'd never been able to get a job since then. And he was accusing us of going around telling everybody not to hire him, and all just all this random stuff. It was crazy, right? And I'm just like, do you know what? I'm not even going to correct him because I think the justice sees through this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't like a court or anything like that. This is a step before it goes to court. But his first offer was he wanted $15,000 because we were the reason, apparently, that he hadn't been able to get work.
Yeah.
In the toughest time to find employees in 36 years in the state, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I ended up offering him the unpaid overtime. There was 2 moments where he had worked through a lunch break at his request. Right. And we...
Was it documented?
Luckily, both times were with the... we clock in and clock out of every single job.
Yeah.
Right. And he was working with the lead gardener both times. So, but because it's such a small amount of money. So I offered to pay him the whatever it was, 45 minutes or an hour or whatever it was, which we didn't have to, right? But I was like, I'll pay you that, and I'll pay you your parking from today.
Yep.
So he was like $15,000. I was like 106 or whatever it worked out to be.
Which is good.
And he came back as like 2,000. I was like, well, your 15 wasn't very serious, was it? And I never had to pay a cent. He never came back after that. But that people, you must have had stuff like
we've
that
got,
happen.
and thankfully, like, I don't ever have to, go
You don't have to
into
be in that
that.
meeting?
Nah,
Man.
thankfully, like, I've never been called into one of those. So I know people in culture, they deal with that, in all that's their thing, like, so, and at the end of the day, it's another cost to the business,
Huge time.
so it's
We prepared about 20 pages
yeah.
where we were like, no, legally everything was fine. But the first thing is like because he was casual,
Mm,
we could just say it's not working out.
yeah.
Like there was just so many different.
Yeah. We have a lot of checks and balances in that process. When we get to, we review it as a business, like, in a retail team, like for us, if we get to that point and it's not our doing, and not saying it's our doing, but is there an opportunity that we could have improved in training, in, different approaches? But when you usually get to those points, and the writing's on the wall, so there's enough documentation, there's enough, you know, performance improvement plans, and so forth like that being put in place. And back in the day, it was short, sharp, bang,
Yeah.
but it's had to evolve over the years, and I'd be so cautious these days. I'd be, based on how we look at our bit, the business that I work in, we look at it as if we're business owners, so we're very particular in our documentation and so forth like that. So I'd be
I think you would get more of
stickler
it.
for it. Yeah.
I think you would get more of it than we would because I
Mm,
think it's more common that people will quit in the gardening industry, I think,
mm,
than get sacked because it is a tough industry to work in.
mm,
And because you're not sitting in like in retail, it depends on the day and all that sort of stuff and what shop you're at and what you sell and stuff. But you
mm.
can sort of have days where no one comes in, and so you might try and you're essentially stealing from the business, trying to sit around, twiddle your thumbs, do
Yeah.
nothing whilst you're getting paid. You can't really get away with that in
No.
gardening. It's like
No.
nothing gets, and so I think people they just go, I'm sick of this business, I'm sick of this and that, whatever,
Mm,
because they know that. So we've had very few people who have been in the grey area,
mm-hmm.
but that is where it's tough, right? Those outright ones where someone's like, mate, you're not performing. We've given you, like we've given people written warnings. On the second written warning, they just quit because they know
Mm,
they see the writing on the
yeah.
wall and things like that.
No, and that's usually the scenario for me. Like, I'm pretty transparent, in that aspect. So if the few that I've worked with over the years that have made decisions to move on, usually we're heading in that path.
Yeah.
So it's a mutual decision, and I think that's for me, that's the best outcome because they know where they're at. That it's not a shock to them. You're pretty transparent and open with them, and if their KPIs aren't getting met, they're
Yeah.
we've put a lot of I guess things in place to review their KPIs and so forth like that. So it's on a quarterly basis, a monthly basis. So it's not foreign for them if we get into a conversation where we go, okay, where are we heading?
So, what are the most important KPIs when it comes to? Because obviously it's very different in a lot of ways, but one thing that would be very similar is client satisfaction.
Yeah.
How do you measure that?
Oh, we've been big lately on not lately, but Google reviews is something that we've
Interesting.
started to look at, and we don't drive it in our store. In our stores, it's more just a measure, because you've got people that I always look at Google reviews and look at it and go, okay, well, that's a 5-star and they've got one review. It's probably one of the crew's friends, and
The mum.
yeah, and then you look at 386 reviews, and they've given us a 2. Well, they've got their stats, they're active on this platform, and we dig into that, and go, okay, well, we're not going to ever hold anyone accountable because
Someone
it's
could come in on a bad
nah,
day,
and
and yeah.
it's for me, I look at it and go, okay, well, I've got all these customers going in, and if someone's going to review, I'm going to look into it. It's another way I can look at the businesses and analyze what's going on. And again, I think customers have changed over the years of expecting, I guess, a Louis Vuitton experience, or that real one-to-one service, you know.
Well, yeah. So
you don't get that
do
anymore.
you feel like people just want to rock in,
Yeah,
check out your prices, try something on?
and they've already checked it out. They've checked it out online,
Yeah,
you know.
interesting.
So, you know, you see that a lot. I'm sure you do it. I do it. I'll research the hell out of something before I go and purchase it, you know. And you know it, you just want to touch it, you know, and that's the
Yeah,
reality
you
of it.
want
And
to
then,
see if it
yeah,
works.
so, um, it's that sort of, you know, customer. It's evolved dramatically over the years. You know, we used to be a business where we still drive customer service. Don't get me wrong; that it's still a heavy, but it's not that in your face.
Because do you feel like this, because the standards have dropped a little bit from the customer's perspective
Well, I think the expectations changed. You know, like it's
in the retail sector?
yeah, like you know, you and things have evolved where there's not the wages that you know wages are going up, so businesses can't afford to put you know
400 people in
people on.
one
You know,
shop.
you
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
you walk through any of the big retailers. You know, um,
Yeah, because
you
that is
struggle to
just,
find people these days, and that's a hard thing for a customer to see. We're all guilty of it. You know, we all go in and go, "There's no one here," but it takes a lot to run those businesses. In all, it takes a lot to run a business these days. You know, so
what would your payroll be?
I'm not sure. A
It'd be
lot.
insane.
Yeah.
Like, cause what, 3,000 plus people? I mean, I've just that just clicked in my head. Man, that would be nuts.
Yeah.
And fortnightly wages, I would guess, because most people do that. Or
Yeah, it'd be a couple of dollars.
yeah,
Yeah.
lots of zinger boxes,
Lots of Pepsi Max.
lots of Pepsi Max. Man, so yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. Man, we're going long here. It's probably an hour and a half, a bit over that.
Oh wow. Okay.
Time flies, doesn't
It does.
it? When you're recording.
It
But one
does.
more thing that I wanted to ask you is, what would you, if someone's going out there, they're wanting to manage teams, right? They're starting from very little, like I was early in the days. Is there books, speakers, podcasts that they can get involved with that helped you over the time?
Yeah, there's been one guy like and it's probably not it's more corporate, you know, is in the last sort of 12 to 18 months that I've really dived into is Marty Moore.
Marty Moore.
Yeah, he was a CEO of a mining company, and he's gone out and done leadership training and so forth like that. He's got a podcast and he does that weekly. It's very very good in understanding how to prioritize and understand. It just each I guess podcast is a different module, and it's catered at senior management, but there's way to extract anything from that, you know, and scale it down or
Is it
scale it up.
Australian?
Yeah, he's
'Cause that's
Aussie.
the other thing as well.
Yeah.
That like a lot of the podcasts are American,
Mm.
and the culture's different.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of leadership training over the years, and some of it's woo woo, to be honest. You know, some of the people,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, you know, but
You also get the thing like, because I know you like the audiobooks as well and stuff, and I love audiobooks, but there can be some stuff where I don't know if you feel this, but you read a book and you're like, you're really just copying this other book from 30 years ago,
yeah,
or like
well,
one of the
yeah,
classics, they've rebranded it a little bit, and it's like it can be a bit a higher view in terms of like broad ideas and general concepts of, and like we said before, you talking about prioritize your team. Everybody knows that, but what is interesting is the video calls. That's interesting, and how consistent and regular you are with that. That's where the meat is.
Yeah.
And some people just get airy fairy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things, you know, like I was like, you know, I've taken away from his training, and we've been lucky enough to have him in our business. You know, the directors brought him up and over now because I think he lives in the US, but being able to work with him on a day or, you know, a couple of days or whatever it was, like there's this little bits of gold, you know, that you can take and work with. And some of it was like, you know, I love getting in the weeds and, you know, no pun intended, but like,
Should
you
be
know,
on this side with all these.
yeah, and working through challenges with people, and problem solving issues out there in the stores and stuff. But I would usually, they would go away with my idea,
Yeah, I
and
see what
and
you're about to say.
and there's a thing that he says is, dipping down, don't dip down, empower your people. And it was something that, I'd always get in with team movement and staffing movement, and
Well, because what you're talking about there, I do this too,
mm,
right? Is I go, well, if I was in this spot, I would do it like this,
mm.
and it's like, well, it's almost like saying, I wish I was doing your job in a sense. Like
Well,
you
it's
got to
like, you
trust
you
them.
should really do it this way because that's the way I want it done.
Yeah,
You
instead
know.
of going, I hired you to trust you, to
Mm,
believe in you to do the job.
mm,
Go do it.
yeah.
You
And
know.
and there's other things like, little cliche things like excellence over perfection, and the amount of times people will drive for perfection, and at the end of the day, like, excellence is fine. How much money is spent on getting it to perfection when you could have moved on at excellence and be on to the next job.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's a dollar bill. That is a spreadsheet going to be any better, or is that store presentation perfect at excellence? I don't need a boutique.
Yeah.
I just want our standard.
Well, and that's one of the things that we did. You might have heard this in the podcast that we said it before, that we had a lady who would call every single person after she's just finished with us, actually, like less than a week ago. So we're going to get a replacement. But she was doing. She would call every client after their first service, and then every regular client maybe once a quarter, and just ask how you going, blah blah. What's your rating? And it was like 8 out of 10 above is good, and anything below 8 out of 10 would check out, because people don't give 10s. 10 would be perfection. 10 would be like you couldn't have possibly done anything better. I mean, there's a lot of people who are very happy, and that's their disposition. Oh, 10 out of 10. You might have missed something. They still give you 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And some people you did pretty close to perfect, and they'll give you a 7. But you can focus. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and again, like, we look at that with recruitment too. You're looking at perfection, the higher perfection. But the thing that I've implemented into our team is, we scale of, and it's not rating people on, it's rating them on their skill set, but it's like, we always want to hire a 10.
Yeah.
But you're never going to find them.
Or even 11.
But like, but especially post-COVID, we've gone, I can spend recruitment costs, time in interviews, everything, chasing that unicorn, or I could hire a 5 and build them up to a 7.
Yeah.
Or build them up to an 8. In the time that I've been looking for an 8 or a 9, which I'm not going to find, because they come at a price point that we don't offer.
Yeah.
Because they've snapped up by a different retailer. Then we hire a 5, and we can spend that time training, developing them, and upskilling them to get them to a 7. Because at the end of the day, if I've got a set 67 7s out there, I'm laughing.
Yeah.
So it's that, those things. Yeah, I could go on for hours.
I guess if the client's expectation is a 7, right, and so you've not oversold yourself and then under delivered.
Yeah,
it's like they're expecting a 7. So, like, people. We'll finish with this as well, because we've got to wrap it up at some stage.
Yep.
But what you're saying right there, like, people don't. If you've never tried to hire people, when you first start hiring people, you don't really know what you want, and you can think that a 5 is a 7, and then 2 months in, oh no, this is a 5. And over you get experience. I've probably had 50 or plus people work for me over the 10 years we've been doing this. You get much better at identifying straight away. Like, you get on the phone and you can get rid of the bottom 20-30% like in 2 sentences, right? Like, there's things you can, you get the idea. But when you look for 10s, we have, in the last 2-3 years, I would say 4 or 5 times we've put a job on Seek and haven't hired a single person because the standard we're looking for is not what was available.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been happy to go, well, I won't hire somebody. And I'm not talking, we needed that 8 plus. And it's like, if there was a 5 who I thought I could bring up, I would do it. But I just don't think, you're looking at these people, I just don't think I can do it, and so it is, what you're talking about there is, if you can, and this would be 2 hours more. What can you do in your business to take your 5s to your 7s? That'll be the episode number 2 because we can't talk about it now. But for those who are thinking about hiring people, the criticism of what you were saying from the inexperience would have been like, why would you lower your standards? But the real people out there who've tried to hire people will go, that's so smart to actually be able to, because it is so true. The 8s and the 9s and the 10s, they don't really exist. Or if they do exist, you've got to pay so much money that you're no longer competitive in price. So, and on that somber note,
bang.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Nah, thank you for having me.
Jump on turf with not much surf.
No surf. Maybe a beach shot once a Saturday or Sunday morning.
Turf, 80% turf, 20% surf. Not even.
100%.
On Instagram, because he doesn't have enough followers. Guys, get your act together. Follow him.
Stop unfollowing and then following. It's driving me up the wall.
Do people do that?
Every day. Every day.
The same people.
No. It's just, I'll lose 500, gain 500
in a day.
Well, sometimes in a good, if I look at the analytics for 3 months, it'll be like, you lost 4,000 and you picked up 4,500 or something. And it's like stupid. But I've gone on a tear the last sort of couple of months, but and had a bit of growth, but it's weird. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I unfollow. I think I've got the same followers as I started with.
Well, the amount you're losing and gaining is still more than I have on the podcast page.
Ouch.
You got 400 and something.
I'll blast you on there. We'll see if we can get you up.
We might get to 500.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you for
having me. See everybody
me.
in the next podcast.
All right.